I appreciate you taking your Sunday out, especially right now, because you're in work mode right now.
I am at work.
Right. I remember The Office.
It's not work mode. I am at work. I've got, the team is running around like the proverbial, chickens with their heads cut off, responding to all kinds of different questions and requirements in order to be able to have the right answer relating to what we're facing today.
Talk to me about that. I mean, one, people going to work, you having to be ready to respond. When did you start getting involved in it? Like, how long ago was it?
We started tracking this in December.
Wow.
We came to the conclusion that if the Chinese government thought it was important enough to build, not 2, by the way, it's 5 hospitals. I want to talk about 2, but the total hospitals they built, from what we know, is 5, 1,000 bed hospitals. That means that, A, they knew a lot sooner than December, because even the Chinese government would have to start planning, organizing, reshuffling manufacturing productions, finding out where to put it. So we pegged that they probably knew something sometime around August or September at the latest, figured out it was a problem, and then figured out how to respond to it. And they never did that for SARS. There was no hospitalization built, an additional surge capacity for when the SARS virus showed up in China. So we sat here going, something is going on. Let's keep an eye on this thing, and let's start reaching out to some of the people we know and say, what are your thoughts? Some people said, yeah, it's a worry, and yep, it's going to be a challenge for all of us. And others said, yeah, don't worry about it, business as usual.
So you're the one that caught on to it. No one reached out to you. You saw it coming. I mean, do you keep a pulse on this type of behavior going around the globe?
I'd like to tell you that we're that smart. No. What happens is that we start reading and looking, and also looking at technologies. What are other people doing within the modular space, for example? And the hospital being one of them. And we just sat around the table and said, wait a minute, this is awesome on the technology side, great. And then why and when did they start planning this? And is it something that the US could do or another part of the world could do? Our short answer was, could they? Yes. Will they? Well, we're seeing the results now.
So with your talk a little bit about your delivery, like what is it that you are able to provide with the current situation that we have? And then I actually wrote down some numbers that I pulled from the Harvard Global Health Institute that I'll throw your way, and then you can kind of respond back to that. But before we even get into that, like, what is it that you're able to provide locally, and how far can you go out? What's your capacity on being able to handle this? Start there.
Well, you know what we do. Most people don't. So, to tell anyone who may be watching this, think of us as IKEA meets construction, but once it's built, it's like living inside of a Yeti cooler. That's the best example I can give someone. So fundamentally, it's something that can come off the truck, be assembled by hand quickly, and that's very important, then disinfected and disassembled and stored, right? And then reused again. Because the fear that the experts have, and I am no medical expert, and I don't even play one on TV, but I'm listening and reading to people from the CDC, people from, Harvard, people from, all the various Johns Hopkins and anything in between. And the consensus is, this is a cyclical event. It's going to happen again. This is not a sprint. This is a marathon. And if we're deluding ourselves that in 2 months, 3 months, it's going to be over, I don't like to be Debbie Downer and the person that's running around going, the sky is falling. But we've been tracking this since December, and all we see is the fact that we're not ready. Our near and far horizon objectives are conflicting with what the experts are saying. So our response is a modular system. We've designed a building that can be assembled in less than 4 hours by unskilled laborers. It is completely washable and cleanable, and you can disinfect it. We actually work now with a manufacturer that has provided us with a spray that is shown to kill coronavirus, and it will last for more than a month on the walls. It can be reapplied afterwards. It can kill actually a lot more than corona, but corona in this particular COVID-19, it's the 19th iteration of the coronavirus. And anyone who's watching right now, go look at whatever Lysol spray or Lysol wipes or Clorox wipes you have today in your cabinet. It will say kills corona, not corona 19, but they've been tracking corona since the early 70s. So the coronavirus in and of itself is nothing new. This 19th iteration is the new piece, and that's what we're dealing with today. So imagine a flat pack in a bunch of pieces that show up in a particular environment. They come off the truck, you assemble them very quickly, no specialized tools, make it virtually airtight, which means we can make them a negative air pressure system. And then when we're done, we have a reusable asset, not a hotel room that we're going to have to disinfect, tear apart, bring down to the studs, and then rebuild for the owner. And then when the next event occurs, not if the next event occurs, when the next event occurs, whatever that event is, it's going to create an issue.
I didn't know that about the 19. Out of curiosity, what is the name of the product that kills the latest iteration?
You know what? I like to tell you, it's a commercially available, and it's an industrial spray that is being used in the medical environment. And I don't have the exact terminology. We're literally finished a conversation earlier today. I know it works. It's been, so I can't answer that. But ask me by tomorrow morning, I'll have all the data.
Okay, because I'd like to just lotion up my head with that stuff.
It's like Starbucks, right? 1 pump, 2 pump. What do you want in your drink?
Get it in nice, work it into the pores. Okay, so this is the information. I mean, this was just some quick research. I was curious based on Central Florida. I was looking at hospital beds. I didn't get an exact number, but this is what I found: is that there's 3 main areas that people are looking at that are the issues: space, equipment, and then the critical care providers. Now, they talked about social distancing. If people practice social distancing, like best case scenario, 20% of the population will become infected over 18 months. That would be 600,000 people in Central Florida infected, and 130,000 of them would need hospitalization, and 29,000 will need intensive care. The needs are Central Florida hospitals will need 30% more beds. I don't know what that number is. It just said 30% more beds and 50% more ICU beds. And so, again, that came from Harvard Global Health Institute. And then the next stat I saw was the elderly, which obviously we all know was it 55 and up, is the ones that are at risk, especially elderly who are maybe poorer in health. And they just say elderly. I don't know what age demographic that would be, but 23% of the population is over 65 in Central Florida. So those numbers, that just came from the Orlando Sentinel. I don't know if you have any other statistics around specifically Orlando, but globally or nationwide, what do you know? What are we looking at? And honestly, do you have the capacity to even deliver, or are you focused locally? Are you dive into that piece of it, because this is the part where I've been pushing since last weekend. I got a lot more serious about staying home. I've been pushing a lot of staying home, and I believe that we have to put a stop to this, because not only does it impact our health, it impacts our pockets, it impacts the economy. Hospital beds is obviously going to be the factor where they're going to be turning people away if they don't have the space for it. So, sorry, there's a lot going on there, but
I will start by changing your list that you started off with, which were hospital beds, I think space, and healthcare workers. Is that kind of the
space, equipment, and provider?
And this is where everyone is not focusing on the important piece. And the important piece is health workers first. Because if they can't work, whatever numbers you're looking at, multiplied by a factor of X, right? If we don't take care of the healthcare workers, we're all screwed. Now imagine a healthcare worker in a full PPE, which is the full protective suit that you see them on, the white suit with the whole thing, whatever. Now put them outside in a tent or in the heat or in a kind of a canopy thing in the summer in Florida or in the summer virtually anywhere, because summer is coming, right? And now tell me how that's going to feel. They can't work for more than 30 minutes. Remember, the parks, the theme parks, had a 30-minute moratorium on working for the people wearing the character suits. It's no different for these folks, except the characters are supposed to make us laugh. These guys are supposed to keep us alive and test us and check us out. So you put someone in a tent, it's going to be an issue. And so to us here at World Housing and others, we're definitely not the only ones. The focus has to be on the healthcare workers. How can we keep them safe? How can we keep them comfortable? Because they're not putting an hour. They're putting, I laughed. I said, I think I've been putting 16, 18-hour days for the last 2 weeks. And when I say it's the entire team. We've been putting nonstop hours working on a lot of things, including working with and engaging our supply chain. So let me shift the conversation a little bit towards a term that you as an entrepreneur have heard before, and we all look at this and the question is always, how are you going to deal with the watershed event? What happens when the floodgates open and everybody wants some of what you got, right? So we sat down and war games, for lack of a better term, for the last week and a half to 2 weeks with all our supply chain and said, when this happens, can you sustain up to what level? And then can your suppliers sustain you on the backside? How far can we reach inside of that supply chain? And at what point do we hit bottom? At what point do you say to us, tapping out, we can't, because raw material comes from XYZ and the ports are shut down or the trucks aren't coming and we're done. We're coming to a critical fail point, at which point in time we now look at supplier A, right? Then supplier A1 and then A2 and then A3 as a backup, because we need to be able to have that. And we've been doing this now for the past 10 days since everything really, it came to a crescendo. And the numbers that we have defined is how can we ramp up enough to create enough structures. So remember, those are roughly 800 square feet buildings, right? It's a floor, it's walls and roof. We can set them inside of a location. Think giant warehouse, think abandoned Sears stores, think a hangar, think a sporting venue, or we can stick them outside. It takes a little bit more effort because we have to strap them down. We have to do a few other things, but fundamentally it's the same structure, roughly 800 square feet, right? We can ramp up our production to deliver over 500,000 square feet of buildings by August. So it's not this, it's the hockey stick is this. It's a very quick ramp up, and it also means for us to open other facilities around the country because logistics becomes the friction point. There's 4 friction points when you're looking at ramping up dramatically. And just to go on the startup mode, it's labor, space, raw material, and money. Those are the main 4 things. Guess what? Our phones have not stopped ringing from individuals whose companies are in the same ecosystem. So think, for example, everyone that's involved in the convention world. They can't do anything. They're stuck at home, but they know how to put stuff together. They know how to work. They know how to drive a truck. They've got the tools. The phone is ringing off the hook saying, hey, we're ready. Put us in, right? And we're saying, that's awesome. Let's figure out the game plan so that when the switch is flipped on, everyone that wants it, we can keep them busy. Not just Central Florida, and obviously we'll start with Central Florida because this is where our base is. But from here, we can literally bloom out to go ahead and take care of the Northeast, the Midwest, the Central, and so on and so forth. We can actually, and the 500,000+ square feet of air-conditioned space, just wrap your head around that for a moment. 500,000 square feet of air-conditioned space, we can actually double that if we had the time and the funds and the resources. So by the end of the year, that number just increases exponentially. And then you can pack it up, store it, and get ready for the next one after you disinfect it, because our stuff can be cleaned up.
Talk to me about numbers. What are we looking at? What are you hearing in regards to space? Let's talk space. What are you hearing numbers wise? And then I think you had some best case scenarios. What does that look like from that perspective? Could you share a little bit about that?
You're talking about the potential impact of COVID-19 within the general population?
Yes.
So the experts that we've been reading about, or even had an opportunity to speak with a few times, I've made the following statement, and this is not a fake news or my cousin's blog. This is a actual CDC, Harvard, peer-reviewed data and information. COVID-19 at one point or another is going to impact between 60 to 75% of the world population. Period, end of discussion. With a little luck, right? With a little luck, a vaccine will come at some point, and some of the people that have had it will have will develop an immunity. Although that's still debatable. People are thinking that we may not get all the immunity we think we can get, because think about it, we can still get the cold, right? We catch it again and again, and COVID-19 is mutating. So what is that immunity going to look like against the other mutation? I don't know. I'm not a doctor. But fundamentally, let's look at the numbers that people are predicating their fear on, and why this matters so much. If 75% of the population gets COVID-19 at some point, coronavirus, and right now the infection rate in New York is 20% of those infected go to the hospital. Let's say we can flatten it out. Let's say we can make it lower. So instead of 75% of the population, let's say it's 30% of the population, right? And then instead of 20% hospitalization, let's say it's 5% that will need to be hospitalized. In absolute numbers, let's look at the US population. That means roughly 100 million Americans get the coronavirus. And of those 100 million, 5 million go to the hospital. Today, we have 987,000 beds. A small percentage of that is ICU, very small percentage. Right? And of those 987,000 beds, more than 2/3 are busy on a daily basis because of cancer and car accidents and whatever else, life, which means it leaves less than 200,000 beds available to deal with corona. So let's say they're wrong. It's not 5% of the population that need hospitalization. That means 5 million people. But let's say it's 1%. It's 1 million. We're still 800,000 beds short. And as we said, as everybody, all the experts say, this is not a sprint. This is a marathon. It's not going to be over in August. Forget it. It's not happening. It may flatten out. It may lower. It may be less of a, oh my God, but you were talking about Florida numbers. We're 10 days behind. And we're 10 days behind because today's testing takes up to 10 days. So think about it. If you say that today we got 1,500 people infected in Central Florida, it doubles every 2 days. Take that number and multiply it 6 times 2. And that's your closer to reality number of those infected around you. So if you don't stay home, then you're in deep trouble. People no longer laugh at us, but this is what we do after every meeting. This is a diluted Lysol spray. My office smells wonderful. You know, I am spraying everything that anyone may ever come close to a touch. And then we wipe it afterwards with Clorox spray. We're trying to do everything we can, because guess what? We're in the manufacturing world. There's no telecommuting here. Our people are here and doing what they can. And when we're activated and pushed out to be able to go ahead and provide these structures, we're here. We cannot, there's no AI yet. There's no little robot that I can control from my house that says, okay, make 5 more buildings today. It's not happening. One day, perhaps. We're not there yet.
Well, Orlando's lucky to have you. Central Florida's lucky to have you. What can anyone who's going to watch this recording, what can we do as a community to help you be more effective in general? I know that you had mentioned you were talking to some people in Washington already. You're running around like crazy right now. This is go time for you. What can the people do that watch this? What can we do to help spread the word? What do you need from the people in your community and surrounding areas?
First thing is stay home, right? If you're non-essential, is stay home. But at the same time, check on your friends and neighbors. And everybody's been saying that, right? Call people, find out, what do you need, right? What can I do to help you? Because if today more than ever, we have to help each other and really coalesce from afar, right? Drop it off in the front door and run away. That's okay, right? But that's the first thing, is take care of you and take care of your community and your neighbors. What we need the most of is spread the word. Because again, it's not us, right? We can't solve this. Even with 500,000 square feet of air-conditioned space by August, and it sounds, oh my gosh, and what we're going to do? Even if we're able to do 10% of that, it would be transformational for those that we can help and for those around. All we need is understanding that it's going to take, forget a village, it's going to take a nation, obviously, and we're going to need to be able to put this behind us as quickly as possible. I posted a thing on Facebook, and it's like, 2020 has a virus. Can we reboot? We can, unfortunately, right? We can't reboot 2020. It is what it is. We've got to deal with the virus, and right now it's all hands on deck. That can, if you're at home stuck, share the word, pass it on, reach out to your congressional, whomever within anywhere, and say, look, we are going to put Americans at work. We're going to use people that are underemployed and unemployed at this stage to be able to do this. As soon as we get activated, we will reach into our community and then start building up, if we have the opportunity, and make this all over the world. So that's really our hope. And then, as I said, this is going to be something that can be reused. So when the next happens, hurricane, earthquake, tornado, flood, our government and our local governments will have assets that can be redeployed.
Who would have ever thought that you would be in this moment right now? Jeez, that's crazy, man. Well, I appreciate you taking this time. I know you've got a lot going on. I want to let you get back to it. I'm sitting here in my home in my backyard. I don't know if you heard earlier, Amy was flipping burgers on the barbecue grill, and I don't know if that was transferring over volume-wise. But I'm here at home. I'm encouraging everyone else out there to stay home. Thank you for showing up to work and doing what you do. And seriously, reach out anytime if you need help, if you need to help get more people involved. Don't hesitate to call. Let me know what I can do for you. Let us know what we can do for you.
Thanks. Appreciate it.
All right, Ron. We'll see you.